Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another DraftKings DFS slate to break down. Tough opening Champions League slate for me for the Tuesday slate here. I got really screwed by Alexander Arnold injury, which is super unfortunate, and just it happens, and just have to move on to our next slate here. It's good that we kind of have soccer every day, pretty much, so plenty of slates to get it back from. Now, for this Wednesday Champions League slate, it is PSG as the big favorites at -220, followed by Liverpool at -205. I don't really completely agree with Liverpool being this favorite. They've not looked ultra convincing in the Premier League so far. I've kind of had to squeak by almost every team they've played. And there's Bayern at -150, Inter -120. So there's minus odds in every slate here, and there's not a huge disparity between any of them. It's a lot more balanced than the slate we had for Tuesday, where it was kind of mostly Real Madrid and Benfica, like according to the odds, and then Real Madrid only won by one goal, and Benfica lost. So like, I feel like that can kind of psych people out at times, myself included, where you kind of get too deep into these odds here. Like even when a team's like -400, it's like a 65% implied win equity or something. It's like it's not that crazy. Like that's something I'm trying to work through in my own process. That's something you should always be doing with DFS is just kind of trying to improve yourself as a player throughout. And my kind of tip right now that I'm trying to work on is try not to focus too much on the odds at times as we go into our goal contribution odds. And it's like even here, there's like a few guys on every game who are like -100 or so, like Barcola, Kvaratskhelia, Ramos, Isak, Salah, Ekitike in Liverpool game, Bayern, Kane, Elise, Jackson, all minus odds. But like, there's not that huge a drop off between like Luis Diaz's chances at +100 versus Harry Kane at -180. So we kind of got to remember that when we're doing our lineups here, is that like that the other thing too is that like the whoever starts a Liverpool striker is going to pick up a lot more ownership than your backups. Like, let me give an example. Like Shoboshoi, let's say between Shoboshoi and Verts, like their odds are not that different. Of course, there is a little bit of that difference there, which we'll talk about in a second. But in terms of like the raw goal contribution chances, yes, Verts is better, but he's going to be infinitely more owned than Shoboshoi. Like that's not a bad GP pivot, and I have to kind of think about that kind of for every position. Is that not to get too bogged down into just a guy who has maybe slightly better odds or maybe has set pieces versus not. GPP especially, like it's kind of the wild west out here. It's just kind of a lot about luck in terms of goal contributions. And to kind of beat that, you kind of have to focus on the ownership more and kind of more focus on less owned guys, considering the differences aren't that huge between a guy who maybe like 50% owned versus like 20% in terms of their goal contribution odds. All right, but yeah, rant over here. Let's just talk about projected lineups and set pieces first. For PSG, they're down to a ton of guys injured right now. Dembele, Doué both got injured under national duty. Kvaratskhelia came out injured last league game. So right now we got this interesting front three of Barcola, Ramos, and Mbaye, which is kind of wild to see for a PSG team. Like their whole front three is out. And that leads to a lot of interesting things for set pieces too, because Kvaratskhelia, Dembele took a ton when they've been in. Lee King-in, who's non-projected, takes a decent amount, so watch out for him. But after those guys, like in this projected lineup, there's really only like Nuno Mendes and Vitinha who can possibly take. PSG are always a team who are kind of a bit of a roulette wheel for set pieces. They regularly change, a bunch of guys who can take. But there's really only two options here. So like there's only so much they can do. It'll either be a Mendes Vitinha split, or maybe Mendes Monopoly, maybe Vitinha Monopoly. And like those are like the only three real scenarios we have here. Like none of these other guys are really set piece takers. So yeah, there'll be some combo of Mendes and Vitinha. And then for Atalanta, it should be mostly Zalewski. Villanova splits here and there as well. So it'll be some combo of those guys. And then for Ajax and Inter, Ajax should be Götze and Berghaus splitting. However, if Glauc starts the new signing, he will take with Berghaus if he starts over Götze. And then for Inter, it should be Di Marco and Çalhanoğlu. Bayern and Chelsea, let's get into now, should be an Olise and Kimmich split. Chelsea should be a Neto and Reece James split. Moving swiftly on here to Liverpool. Now, they're kind of the weirdest teams for set pieces in the world right now. Like, Verts will take what he feels like it. However, sometimes he'll get like Gakpo, maybe he'll just randomly take a couple. Sometimes Shovel will just randomly take a couple. Like, who knows? There'll be some combo of those three guys. Hopefully, unless they have like Kirkias or something which wouldn't surprise me because it is Arne Slot. He doesn't have a super consistent set piece routine. And then for Atletico Madrid, it should be mostly Antoine Griezmann. All right, now let's go into our pricing here. Now, for the forwards, it is kind of mostly those PSG guys. There's Salah, there's Kane, there's Garnacho for some reason, but it is a lot of these PSG guys who are injured, let's remember. It's like Dembele's out. Kvaratskhelia probably won't start. Doué is out. Like your kind of main three you're looking at here are Salah and Kane. Now, Salah's kind of had a bit of a sketchy start to the season. I'd say. I know he's kind of gotten goal contributions in most games, but he's just not looked great. He's had like a penalty kick. I don't know, scored a couple of goals just on the break late or got an assist from them. Like, I don't know if I love this 10,800 price tag for Mohamed Salah with a tough Atletico Madrid matchup, which I think is a little unfair on them with in terms of the odds being like what plus how much dogs plus 500 dogs. I don't really agree with that. I think Atletico Madrid are a good team, and I think Salah is not quite as good as the price and odds imply. Now, Harry Kane 9,600. I don't mind that. Like, he's safe for 90 minutes. I think Chelsea can be a little bit stingy at the back at times. He's the only thing there. Like, not a bad option for in him. Like, Salah's not a bad option either. Don't get me wrong. But like, you need to make stands here in a slate like this, and I don't mind getting off of Salah here. I don't mind playing him either. Other guys, Berghouse 7,900. Yeah, don't love it. Ramos at 8,200. Not a bad GV play. I'd probably stay clear in. The good thing with him is that PSG are so thin up front, so maybe it's a chance to go 90 when he hasn't usually been. But it just carries some risk because of his complete lack of floor. There's like Ekatike, who Isak, I imagine, will be back on the bench, missed last league game, building fitness. But I imagine he'll finally get a chance in this game, and then you'll probably just be in a bit of a timeshare between himself and Ekatike. One will probably start go 60, sub for the other one for 30, which is just you just have to know what you're getting into. Like whoever starts could end up scoring 2 goals in those 60 minutes, but just have to remember that he's had less time to do so. Now, Gakpo team 500, I think is a super interesting play. He's had a great floor even before he started taking set pieces last game. Suddenly you threw him some corner kicks. I know it's like against a bunkering Burnley team, so they've had a ton of corners and just good flow. But he had like a 20 floor for Gakpo. I don't expect that against Atletico Madrid, but I actually bunker at times. Like there could be chances to kind of be camped in Atletico's half and just have a ton of chances to cross, shoot, and just get DFS points. Like I said, 500, I don't think that's a bad spot at all here. I almost like him more than Salah. And super safe for minutes too. Like Gakpo, I think is a super tempting option here. Got Pedro 7K, PvP play, sure. Luis Diaz 6,800. I don't think that's that crazy of a spot for him. Pretty favorable matchup at home to Chelsea. He's looked very good in Bayern early on. Like I have no issue with that. The Kitalara, I think is a tough matchup, even though I like him as a player. Thuram, I never mind. He's kind of a GPP flyer. Barcola, I could see getting some steam just because he is the most established of this PSG front three. He kind of played regularly when all their forwards were healthy. He's kind of splitting time with Doué, even when they were both healthy. It was kind of one of them start one game, the other would start the next. But he's kind of like the most talented of this PSG attacker lineup still available, and 6K is a pretty cheap price for him. Other guys here, Gotts, 5,800, chance of sets, sure. And then you're kind of looking at bargain bin guys. Pedro Neto, Griezmann, I think they're both very in play. Griezmann a little bit, now he's 34 years old, doesn't play 90s. He didn't get a ton of goal contributions typically. But with Julian Alvarez out, he should have a little bit more of a chance to kind of step into the spotlight. And like I said, I think the odds kind of underestimate Atleti a bit. And I don't mind Griezmann play at all. Now, Neto 5,300. I think it's a little bit more safer than Griezmann. He's a 90-minute guy typically. Neto crosses a ton from open play, guaranteed set pieces. And yeah, 5,300 is a super cheap spot here. That's not a bad play either. Past them, there's not a ton here. Like Giuliano Simeone, if he starts for 3,600, that's not a bad, just kind of cheap forward flyer. But there's definitely some pretty interesting forward options here. And then Kvaratskhelia, if he somehow starts, you have to think he's in play. Now, midfielders. Olise, I think, is kind of your safest option on this slate here. Been super solid for Bayern in the opening few games here. It's just a super fun DFS player. Takes a ton of shots, skips a ton of crosses, hits a ton of goal contributions, which Like you can't really go wrong with. And he's a 90-minute player typically too. But he's 9,400. That's a very fair price tag here. I kind of imagine myself almost certainly having him in cash. Would probably be in my core when we get to that point as well. Cole Palmer, 8K. He doesn't have sets anymore, which kind of sucks, but he's just a good goal contribution guy. So he's in play for me. Probably not a great cash option because of that lack of lack of floor, but he's not bad by any means. Chalanolu, 73, 7,200. I don't know. I'm just not loving him right now. He's not been starting a ton. I don't know if that's due to injury. We know he like was trying to transfer out of the club, but ended up staying over the summer, which I don't know if that's great for him either. I don't know if he's a 90-minute player anymore. So like I just feel iffy about Chalanolu. Kim's just kind of your safe security blanket. You have set pieces, you'll play 90 minutes. He's on a good team, but just a little bit capped in upside there is the one issue with him. But saying that, like Ash, he's a perfectly fine play. Florian Wirtz, he is such an enigma right now. He just is not getting goal contributions. He's not playing terrible, but he's just not looking like a 120 million player or whatever he was. But he's just so easy to go back to the well because he's so cheap every game. He takes some set pieces, and you just kind of believe in the talent of a Florian Wirtz to finally figure it out at Liverpool, even though he hasn't done so yet. He's just such an easy click, even though he kind of really hasn't shown real ability yet for Liverpool. He's just a safe DFS option, really. Who has yet to light it up, but you kind of see the potential there. DK in at 600, if he starts another guy who was questionable, one of the many PSG guys. He was not on the injury report, but like I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of ease him back into all the other PSG guys like Kvaratskhelia who are questionable. If he starts, he's going to just raw set pieces. He's not the greatest from open play. Like he doesn't get a ton of shots. He doesn't get a ton of goal contributions. But it's 6,600 on the biggest favorite on the slate, but it's not a bad option by any means. Mayulu, if he starts 6K, that's not bad PSG exposure. Bettini at 5,500. If you want to gamble on him potentially having a monopoly, that's not a bad idea at all. I think he should be on penalty kicks too. There's a small chance that Ramos ends up taking over him. Small thing there. But he's usually pretty solid from the penalty spot. And you're kind of hoping that he just ends up having set pieces and just goes off that way. He's another guy who's safe for 90 minutes too. That is another advantage to him there. So 5,500, not a bad play at all. However, the one risk, of course, being that you never really know PSG set pieces. It could just be Nuno Mendes monopoly, and then you're essentially having a sitting defensive midfielder. Like in this PSG lineup, he's definitely the one who sits the most. Like Ruiz and Neves will definitely get forward here and there. Coutinho doesn't do that a ton, but he'll still just kind of deep line playmate. He got 2 assists in their league game, so he is capable of getting goal contributions, but it's just a little bit risky because of all the reasons we mentioned above. After him, like Enzo Fernandez, if there's no Reece James, should have sets. He's not a bad little option here. Bayern's just a tough matchup. Other guys here I'm looking at that are cheaper options. There's not a ton. I'm gonna be honest. If there's João Neves, that's not a bad option as PSG exposure as well. And then Barella, if there's no Chalanolu, he should split with DiMarco in that case. He'd be a super tempting option as well. Then after those two, Glauc at 3,300, that's going to be a tempting guy if he's in. Zalewski, if he's a defender, he'd be great. At mid, kind of whatever. But yeah, Glauc could be the key here if we get a favorable Ajax lineup and he ends up starting. Now let's go into defender. There's some really nice defender options. First off being Hakimi at 6,400. He was a lot more expensive last season. They taken away the log, sadly, but he was like 7, 8K at times. Now being 6,400 on the best matchup on the slate, like I have no issues with just kind of jamming potentially Nuno Mendes. Like the PSG fullbacks are great options here. After them, Dumfries is never a bad play. Frimpong, I'm a little bit scared of the minutes right now coming back from injury. Villanova, I'd like if we were sure he had set pieces, but it's just been a little bit of an iffy situation right now. And it's just a tough matchup. And Nuno Mendes talked about I love. He might be even a better option than Hakimi. Hakimi, I'd say, is maybe the guy more likely to kind of go off in terms of goal contributions. But Nuno Mendes has a great chance of having set pieces here. Like he is an outside shot of having a monopoly. But at 5K, like you're taking the 5K monopoly set piece taker on the biggest favorite. That's just a no-brainer play. if it ends up shaking up like that. It's like he's well worth the risk. Worst case scenario, ends up taking nothing. He's just a PSG super attacking fullback with a good matchup. Like there's no real reason against him. DeMarco 4,700. I love DeMarco. He's a bit of a like 65-minute, 60-minute player now. Kind of the one downside, but he just crosses a ton. Super attacking, gets goal contributions. Like at 4,700, that is so cheap. You kind of got three really elite kind of defenders to choose from between Hakimi, Mendes, DeMarco. If I had to rank them, I'd probably go Mendes, Hakimi, DeMarco. There's where you just go all three, honestly. And I'll have all of them kind of mixed and matched here and there in GPP. I don't really imagine myself having a build without at least one of those three guys. Alternatives to them, Reece James at 4,400. That's not a bad little option there. And then I'm not loving a ton. Like I'm gonna have so much of Hakimi, Mendes, DeMarco. But if I had to pick a name, Rosa, if he starts, 3K left back, sure. Virgil van Dijk's not a battle GPP play. He's just a giant. Just gets a ton of headers. Bindoff, he starts at left back, not bad. And then Lucas Hernandez, if Mendes somehow doesn't go 2,900 defender, sure. Same with Konate's Liverpool exposure 2,800. But yeah, there's just not a ton there as you can see. I could like DeMarco, Hakimi, Mendes. They're gonna pick a ton of ownership, I imagine, but they're just such good options here. Dumfries is probably your kind of only real nice alternative that can kind of match in terms of upside. He gets 10 goal contributions, but really it's just him. And then there's really not much else here in terms of defender besides your three elite options that we discussed. Now, goalkeeper, it's a crapshoot, as I just always say. I ended up being a really goalkeeper. Even like 10 saves in the first half, ended on like 13, like 20 points or something, which is just amazing. Even 2 goals, didn't even get the win and still had that many points. Just unreal. And you can just see that. You see that sometimes. Like it just, he could have easily, if he didn't play as well, could have given up 4 or 5 goals and suddenly he's on negative points. This is kind of the nature of goalkeeper. If your goalkeeper plays well, great. If you're bad, kind of screwed. And there's no real way to kind of predict that on the day. You kind of play whoever fits your build and just try not to think about it too much. It's really the only thing you can do. Now, in terms of a core, I'm starting with Elise. I am very tempted to put Florian Wirtz here, but I think there is alternatives here, especially if Glauc starts. So I want to commit to a defender, or at least 2 defenders, but I'm not sure which. I'm going to Nuno Mendes, I think, for now. I think he's kind of the best of the defender options. Could go for a forward in the core, but I'm going to commit to putting Hakimi for now. I think it's really close between him and DeMarco. I'm gonna tell you now that in double up single entries, I probably just end up with all 3. Honestly, like I don't really see a world where I don't. I love all those 3 guys too much. I'm just going Hakimi now, just because I think he'll be a little bit more popular in cash things. He's less likely to hurt you in the fact that he doesn't get early subbed like DeMarco sometimes does. That's where I think the edge is right there in having him over DeMarco in the core. Like I said, love all 3 of those guys. But yeah, guys, that'll be it. And I'll see you for the next one. Peace.